You saw that title, you saw the thumbnail. Let's get at it, let's go. Now I started to actually edit this video, then I decided to do it a different way. So it actually starts out kind of with me talking previously on Dear Woke Christian. But let's let it go. Let's go, Jason. You saw that thumbnail, you saw that title, so you know what we're about to do. This is going to be an exclusive video. What I mean by that is this is only going to be for my Buy Me a Coffee people. I'm not going to put this on YouTube proper for everyone else to see. This is not really in the wheelhouse of Dear Woke Christian, but the content, the discussion, this video was super duper important. I think there is some room even to make it pointed to the gospel first of all, but then also even what we kind of talk about on Dear Woke Christian. But above all that, I just felt like this would be something I had to share just with the Buy Me a Coffee crowd. So thank you very much for your support. Get yourself some popcorn, get your notepad, get your smartphone, get your dumb phone. We're about to get at it. Let's go.
Well, when you're in your 20s or 30s, maybe your libido is strong. It makes you insane.
Yeah, I was not. I definitely was.
As we age, we mellow.
Okay, so in this part, the attorney was telling a story about a 92-year-old man who divorced his wife of almost 6 decades to marry a woman that was 50. It was really wild. And the guy is really lamenting how he thought that as he got older, he would be less driven by his sexual libido, but rather he would just, be a normal guy, just like see life and enjoy life. He said this 92-year-old guy, man, made him upset because the guy was still being driven by his sexual urges even as an older man. So I understand this guy, but let's keep it going.
Because I thought at some point I'd get to experience what it's like to just be free.
You live in New York, where there's a financial industry. There's all kinds of industries here.
Oh yeah.
But to me, sometimes I wonder if female attractiveness isn't the highest valued commodity in our
100% it is. 100%.
It is.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, of course.
Because men are becoming rich and powerful in order to get a woman.
Of course.
The woman they want.
Of course.
So real quick, I think this is a great point to put in, producer Jason to drop in. We as men must make a covenant before God and to honor God with our eyes. I mean, society and Satan realize that men are just willy-nilly. They just look at anything they want to look at. And that is part of our problem. We are driven by our eyes, what we see. And most of the time, it goes from our eye sockets to our lower member, and we're not thinking clearly. We're not thinking rationally. We're not thinking rightly. There, I even said we're definitely not thinking righteously. But let's let him finish, man.
What an attractive woman, and when I say attractive, I don't just mean attractive, I mean even just sexually confident. I mean, what an unbelievably lucrative career that is. Like, I do divorces for people that, a woman walks out with $200-300 million. He was an analyst at Goldman Sachs who built a hedge fund and then sold it, and then used his trading algorithm to build it up to $500 million. She was hot. Wow. And slept with him for a while, and then stopped and started sleeping with other people and playing tennis and having Botox, and she's going to get half. Like, that's fucking incredible. Like, do you know what he had to do to get that? And what she had to, I'll that guy for $200 million. Are you kidding me? Like, that's insane. That's incredible. Like, and God bless. I mean, I'm not saying that this is the rules of the game, but you can't argue that that's not easier than going to Harvard.
No, for sure. But then the payoff, the trade-off for that is that when they hit a certain age, the value decreases.
Right.
And I wanted to point out just how they look at marriage and the relationship between men and women from a very, very surface level. But I do think this guy, and I like the attorney. I have to admit, I like him. The way he approaches things, I like the way he talks. I guarantee you I would love to sit down and have a drink with this guy, have some wings, watch a UFC fight. He's probably a great guy. His understanding of marriage, though, just really needs to be deepened. And most importantly, they have no concept of who initiated and started marriage. Because you're going to see in a moment, they really believe that man started this thing. Let's let them go.
Any stock, if you hold it too long, it's going to go down.
I'm sorry.
So play the stock the right way. I mean, and that's what I think. If we were a little more honest about the nature of male-female coupling, I mean, right now we can't even establish what is gender. We can't establish any of that anymore. So divorce has become incredibly hilarious and fraught.
Well, to me, what is, like, sometimes you have to stand back and look at things to get the real perspective on what it is.
Sure.
And sometimes you look back at marriage. So when was it invented? Like 2000 BC, roughly. And the life expectancy of humans back then was 18 years old.
Yeah.
2000 BC. So that would have been 4,000 years ago. The life expectancy of humans was 18 years old. I don't get where they were getting that from. I mean, there's nothing that says that as time moved on, yes, our life expectancy has gone down, but I don't see where 18, because without modern medicine, we've been able to almost quadruple. Dare I even say, like, I mean, we can live to 80 usually without even having a hangnail. So I mean, that's kind of serious, man. That's almost 4 times. But let them go, man. But listen to why we started marriage.
And
Yeah.
marriage was created for
Land ownership.
and things like that.
Yeah.
And if you're going to die in your early 20s or whatever, then getting married at 16, 18 makes sense.
Well, I think there's a distinction that has to be made between pair bonds and marriage, right? Marriage is a government concept. Marriage is a contract. Marriage is a legal status. Pair bonds, right? 2 people go in it together, saying, hey, there's 7.3 billion people in the world, and the 2 of us, we're gonna lock up together, and we're gonna try to hold hands and get through this thing.
Till we're 80 years old.
Well, until whatever, I mean, what's interesting is, first of all marriages end. They end in death or divorce, but they all end. Like every marriage ends. So
That's fair. Okay. And also, he doesn't seem to, you'll never hear them explain the benefit of marriage and having a 2-parent home on children. You'll see what happens when when a husband and wife break up against the children and on the effects of that on the children. But you don't hear him say, like, hey, there's actually really good utility. He uses this term technology. He's going to use that in a second. And it's really good usage for marriage to make other happy, healthy, strong humans. Even if you want to use on a surface level, outside of even the scriptures in a biblical response, there's still good reason for it because it makes happy, healthy, strong humans. But watch what they do.
it's one of the only things that you go, wow, I really hope this ends in us dying. Most things, that's not the desired outcome. But in marriage, you hope marriage will end in death. You hope that you will be together until one or both of you die. But all marriages end.
But
So
as a guy, as a provider, if you knew it was going to end and you were going to have to give away half your money, you might think twice about doing it.
Well, I think that's what makes being a divorce lawyer interesting, is that it's a lot of what a court has to do is disregard what happened in the marriage, because the truth is at the bottom of a bottomless pit. Like, you're never getting.
He uses a lot of very interesting, I don't know what you would want to call them, lawyerisms, I guess. Like, the truth is at the bottom of a bottomless pit. He said the person that discovered water wasn't a fish. He uses a ton of those. Marriage is the only institution where you hope that you die in it. I mean, he uses a lot of quirky little, I don't know what to call them, axioms, lawyerisms. I don't know, what did you, idioms, I guess, maybe lawyer-specific idioms. Down in the comment section, let me know what you would call those, and if you found one that you really like. Let's keep it going.
Gonna get there. Yeah, well, he's fucking his secretary. Right, because you were not sleeping with me anymore. I have a client whose wife acknowledges she didn't sleep with him for 6 years. What did you think was going on if you didn't sleep with him for 6 years? So delegate. You've delegated that responsibility. If you don't want to have sex with him, that's okay. No one should force you to have sex with this person. Let him go have sex with someone else. You don't want to do the laundry, hire someone to do the laundry. If you don't want to mow your own lawn, hire someone to mow the lawn. Delegate that responsibility. And this guy.
That's where I get to the point of it being like a utilitarian approach. Like, it just checks some boxes. It's just, there is no holy matrimony. It's just, we're just married. We've made a commitment to one another, but there's not an obligation before God. So I'm not obligated before God to cut the grass. And my wife is not obligated before God to cook a meal, okay? It's not really like that, but there are obligations before God as relates to sexual intimacy between a husband and a wife. But let's let him go.
She had the indignation to say he shouldn't be a custodial parent. He's a terrible person because he's doing this. I figured it out. But to suggest that that means I'm a bad parent, that has nothing to do with my parenting at all, period. You know, so, and thankfully the judge agreed with me on that one. But I really do think that the idea, I don't think, I mean, if you break it down fundamentally, 56% of marriages end in divorce. Like, think about, that's the ones that end in divorce. So how many people, what percentage stay together for the kids? Or because they don't want to give away half? Another 10%? That's conservative.
Conservative.
But let's say 20% then, okay?
That's at least right.
You now have a technology that fails 76% of the time. That's
Here goes the term
insane.
technology.
That's insane. That's more likely than not. 76%. If I told you there's a 76% chance when you walk out the door today you're gonna get hit in the head with a bowling ball, you would not go out, or you'd wear a helmet for sure. But people just continue to get married. Not only do they continue to get married, there's a presumption that you should get married, and if you don't get married, there's something wrong with you. So if you've got a girlfriend and you've been with her for 5 years, and you say to someone, we're getting married, they go, oh, that's great. You know, they don't go, why? You're happy, why would you get married? Like, everything's going fine, why would you put yourself through that? Why would you run that risk? If you say to someone, we've been together 5 years, and we've decided we're not gonna get married, we're gonna move in together, but we're not gonna get married. Ooh. What's wrong? You have intimacy issues? What's your problem? Meanwhile, 56% end in divorce. It's literally fits the legal definition of negligence.
All right, I got to stop right there. I think he's making a great point, but the solution that he's deriving from it, I mean, there is a real problem. 56% of marriages end in divorce, and 76 are unhappy, so on and so forth. I think there's a good reason. There's some problems there, for sure. The solution doesn't match the problem, though. The solution of just, because later on, they're going to just basically say, you don't need to get married, you shouldn't get married. Pretty sure most of you know that. I don't think that's the right answer. But let's look at this definition of negligence, which I thought was actually really informative.
It's a negligent behavior. The way you define negligence in law school is when what you lose by not doing something, okay, is lower than the risk of harm. It's what's called a BPL analysis. So the burden of not doing a thing is lower than the likelihood, the probability of harm. So BPL, so burden, probability, and loss. Marriage is an inherently negligent activity. It's like owning a lion. Like the likelihood of someone getting hurt seriously by this is very, very high. No one ever says it to you, because why? Because, I would say something, I've been doing this for over 20 years.
That's what I mean. Like, the guy comes up with some of the best idioms. It's like owning a lion. I love it, man. I love it.
And I still get misty-eyed at weddings. Like, I still really, there's something in me that goes like, you know, maybe it'll work out for these two.
You still
like,
believe
it's
in love?
Sweet. I absolutely believe in love. I think love is wonderful. But love and marriage have very little to do with each other. I don't think there's much of a correlation there. And I think that's where we got off track. Like, I believe in pair bonds. I don't think I can learn everything I need to know about myself from myself. I think having someone around me who sees my blind spots, and that doesn't have to be a romantic partner. That could be a friend, that could be any number of things. But there is something wonderful about romantic connection. We know that. I mean, the other statistic is 56% of marriages end in divorce, but 84% of people who get divorced are remarried within 5 years of their divorce.
Really?
That is weird.
Think about that. So now you've done it and failed and felt the pain of the loss, and within 5 years, 84% are remarried.
So when you fall in love, and you're with a partner who's in love with you,
Sure.
it's like hard to put the brakes on and say, you know what, that's as far as I'm going to go.
Well, I think whoever discovered water, it wasn't a fish.
There you go.
And I think when we're in a thing, we don't see it. And so, I mean, and this is true of any of us.
There must be
like,
some endorphins, something's being released in our brains.
It's a piece. Listen, you want to test that theory. The next time you're out with a couple who've been together for a while, and it like seems like they maybe got in a fight, or they're just like kind of being, impatient with each other at the table. You know, when you go like a group thing. Just say to them, so tell me about how you met. Tell me the story of how you met. And everything on them changes. Like they go back to that place. And there's this like, oh yeah, and she was this. Because for that second, you go back to that place. Like you can go, someone with a horrible divorce if you could get them to go to that place and talk to you about that time, like I would tell you something, when I was a kid, you know, like every kid, you have the fantasy of like, if you were invisible, what would you do? You'd go to the girls' locker room, you know, whatever. I have this fantasy that if I could be invisible, I have about 8 clients that I'd like to sneak into their house and find their wedding album. Like I know it's in the attic somewhere or something, because I would love to see what it looked like when these people loved each other, because they are weaponized against each other now, and we are trying to kill each other, and we're taking every secret, every intimacy, everything, and we're just
at their ugliest.
At their ugliest, at their worst. And there's something in me that just the thought that like, you guys at some point you were like, there's 7.3 billion people in the world and you're the one. Like you're the one I just want to be with and smell and touch and like that feeling, we all know that feeling of like just the electricity of another person, you know? And I think I'm a romantic at heart in the sense that I really get it. Like I really get why we do this. I felt it, I know it, I understand it. But tying that to the technology of marriage to me makes almost no sense whatsoever. And I actually think it's almost antagonistic to that connection with another person, because there's so much expectation that comes with marriage culturally. We've created so much stuff around it. Like when you marry someone, they're supposed to be, at least in the modern Western model, your best friend, best roommate, best co-parent.
All right, I'm gonna back this up because this one's really, give him a little second, because I never thought about how the burden that we put on each other as husbands and wives. So here we go.
Almost no sense whatsoever. And I actually think it's almost antagonistic to that connection with another person, because there's so much expectation that comes with marriage culturally. We've created so much stuff around it. Like when you marry someone, they're supposed to be, at least in the modern Western model, your best friend, best roommate, best co-parent, best travel partner, best roommate, best everything, best activity partner. Like how would one person be all of those things? That's insane.
That's fair.
So I think why do we put on people this idea, like whoever came up with the word soulmate, really we should be paying, like divorce lawyers should be paying that person dividends. Because we've convinced people that if this person isn't meeting every one of your needs, checking all of these boxes, they're not your soulmate. Your soulmate would know exactly what to do, exactly what to say at exactly the right time.
That is funny. I don't like the term soulmate, so I don't buy into that, but I totally have heard it, and I do believe he's right on the money with that.
I can go off on this stuff.
Yeah.
What
do you think the secret is to keeping a marriage vital, keeping it alive?
You know, I think people get unhappy in marriages the way that people go bankrupt, which is very slowly and then all at once. I think it's very slow and then it just goes off a cliff. So everybody will say, well, we divorced because he was cheating or she was cheating, or we divorced because he had an alcohol issue or a drug issue. And certainly like social media has increased the accessibility of adultery and connection.
All right, watch what he says about social media. I was like, yo, that is a very interesting take on it. But again, his whole career, his whole job, his 9 to 5 is in this space. So I'm sure he has some stories to tell.
To other people and reconnections with people from your past who remind you of a version of yourself that you felt more excited about because you were younger. So it's, you know, it used to be if you like ran into the girl you banged in high school, it was like once every 10 years at a reunion, you know, or if you lived in the same town as you grew up in, you know, you might run into the person at the Walmart. But now it's like on Facebook, you have all these excuses to be able to chit chat with someone, and all these benign entry points, you know, of like, oh, you know, I saw your pictures from vacation. Where did you stay in Miami? You know, and then it becomes, oh yeah, well, you looked great. I mean, boy, you look fantastic in a bikini, and all of a sudden we're off to the races and we're chatting with each other. So you know, if we were going to invent like an infidelity machine, you couldn't do better than Facebook and Instagram. I mean, that's about as good as it gets. But I genuinely think that the secret to staying happy in a marriage is probably The same secret to maintaining a healthy weight. You know, don't wait till you get super fat and then try to lose the weight. Don't wait until you get really sick. Like my sister is a dentist, and she always says, if you have a toothache, there's nothing I can do really. Like I can pull the tooth, I can give you a root canal, but like I can prevent you from getting a toothache. If you just come see me regularly and you just floss and you just brush your teeth, you'll never get a toothache. By the time your tooth hurts, something is already seriously wrong. By the time you're in a divorce lawyer's office, the whole thing's at that point. Like you'd be better off just, you know, figuring out the preventative maintenance, right? Like change the oil in your car. Like, so what I try to, if you reverse engineer divorce, like most people, the marriage killer, you know, the cheating or the gambling or the whatever, that's the symptom. Like the problem is these little disconnections, you know. One of the
Okay, so he's about to get into a very interesting story that I think really cements his case. I do believe he's making a fantastic case. He just doesn't bring you the last mile, which is the biblical understanding of marriage. So he lays out the problems fantastically. So I give kudos to him as well as the soft white underbelly who did this initial interview. The problem is there isn't a solution that is meaningful and biblical, but let's let him go.
One of the best stories I have is I had a client who I did her divorce, and we'd spend a lot of time together because you do. You know, when you're a divorce lawyer, you spend a lot of time with people and you get to know them very well. I mean, people will lie to their therapist. They won't lie to their divorce lawyer because A, there's no reason to, and B, I need to know everything, and it's all attorney-client privilege. And this woman, we were sitting outside the courtroom waiting on a break in testimony, and she was a young woman in her probably like late 30s, you know, very attractive. And we were just chit-chatting, and I said to her, you know, was there a moment when you realized the marriage is over? You know, like, was there a moment? And she said, yeah. And I said, when was it? And she said, there was this granola that I like. She said, they only sold it at like this particular grocery store, and I like to put it in my yogurt. And she said, he used to always, whenever I'd be running low on it, I would just open the thing one day and a new bag would be there. She's like, and she's like, it made me feel so loved. Like I didn't have to ask. He didn't want credit for it. Like he didn't go like, oh, did you see it? I got your granola that you wanted, you know? Like he just would do this thing, you know? And she said it was just something that like, it always made me smile. She said every time the granola was running low and there was a new bag of granola, I just felt very loved, you know? And she said one day the granola ran out. And I thought, oh, that's weird. You know, maybe he didn't see it. She's like, so I left the bag in there because I thought, well, at some point he'll notice. And he didn't notice. She goes, so I took the bag out and I waited and he didn't get a new bag. And I thought, okay, this thing's going down. And I thought to myself, wow, that's like, you know, that's such a small thing.
Okay, I'm gonna stop right there because he also talks to the husband about what was it that he knew when he knew that it was over. Interesting nonetheless. I'm sorry. I get my wife's gas in her car all the time. And there was a season where I just decided I didn't want to do it. Like I've been getting my wife's gas for better than 20 years. She didn't pump gas for a long, long time. If she did, it was a very rare incident. But there was a season where I just didn't get gas. I just chose not to get it. Like, I really shudder to think that would have been it was probably a good 3-4 months where I was like, I'm not going to get gas. I don't feel like doing that. No good reason. I went back and still do it. We didn't have a conversation about anything like that. But good gracious, man. Like the woman, like the granola, you took the bag out. Why don't you just go get the granola? Like, that's how you knew the marriage was failing? See, that's what I'm talking about. We've made marriage a transaction. We've made marriage a quid pro quo. I do for you, you do for me. But let's let them go. Like
granola, like you just, but these are the things, like these are the little things that make us feel loved and that are gestures of love. And when I said to her, was there anything like that for you?
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. He asked the wife, not the husband, the wife. Here it comes.
with him? And she said, yeah. And I almost spit out my coffee. And she goes, no. She goes, when we were first dating and even first married, she's like, I used to give him a lot. She's like, do it in the morning, took 2 minutes. And he was like super happy the rest of the day, She's like, the rest of the day, he would like call me or text me and be like, oh, that was so good this morning. I had such pep in my step now. And she's like, it was just like, what did it really take out of my life to do that? And it made him feel good. She's like, and then I got to a point where I was like, well, you know what? No, I'll wait. And then tonight we can have sex and we'll both enjoy that. Like, what do I owe him? Like, no, like I don't owe him that, And then she said I got to a point where it was like, I look back and I'm like, yeah, I guess I didn't do that as often, hardly ever really,
Which came first?
I said that to her and she said, I couldn't tell you. She said, but I think it's the same thing.
It's the same thing.
And I do think it's the same thing.
Yeah.
All right, I don't think it was, because she said that when they were dating. So if they weren't married or living together, rather, with the granola story, he wasn't buying her granola before she was doing that. I don't think that was the case, but.
And I'm not saying blowjobs and granola is all you need to know, but, and I'm not saying that a job is a small thing. I don't think I have any right to. I've never given one. I don't think it's a massive investment, right? Just like buying someone's granola is not a massive.
But when you love somebody, you love doing things for them.
Right, their pleasure
you love
pleases
making
you.
their life better.
Their joy pleases you. Like their happiness makes you happy.
Exactly.
And somewhere along the line, and it happens a lot in marriage, it becomes, well, I'm not happy, why should you be happy? And then that creates a spiral. And I really believe that that spiral could go in the other direction. Like if he did the granola, I think jobs would have come, and if jobs were there, I bet he'd have bought the granola. Like I can't prove that. There's no control group, I can't run that research, but it feels to me like those little things, like leaving a note, I've said to some of my friends, when they say to me, like, as a divorce lawyer, you see all this misery, like, how do I stay out of your office? And I'll often say, I'm like, it's dumb little things, man. I'm like, just leave her a note. I'm like, leave her a note in the morning. Just leave a little note that says, hey, beautiful, so it was so fun watching that movie with you last night. So glad we got to have a date. I'll be thinking of you today. Love you. Like, what does that take? That takes like a minute, not even. Like, and look what it can do. Like, look at how that makes this person feel. And even if right away it doesn't work, on that moment it doesn't work, okay, do it enough times. Like, and then you're either gonna figure out that this person's gone, and then just bail. You're done. Because if you try for long enough and you give like that, but if you're not giving like that, and then you're not getting back either, well, I'm not surprised. That's how you end up in my office, is this death spiral of everyone like, well, I'm not buying the granola, she's not giving me, well, I'm not giving him, she's mean to me. Okay, well, everybody's just has an equal right to be miserable then.
I think if you're happy with yourself, you're truly happy with who you are at that point in your life, or whatever the situation is, I think it's easier for you to be happy with your partner.
Yeah, but I would argue that if you're not happy with yourself, having someone happy with you is certainly not going to hurt your feeling of who you are, right? Like I don't need someone to tell me I'm handsome for me to have a nice day, but I can't think of anybody telling me I was handsome that it ruined my day.
See, he just had some of the best quirky little statements, because I've never thought about that. Yeah. A good point.
Most of the time you're like, oh, that's nice. I got that going for me. So yeah, I think self-love, of course, is the most important love, and to be secure in who you are and to not allow your self-definition to be easily swayed or pulled. Like if you believe the good reviews, you got to believe the bad ones too. I get that. But I just don't think kindness, it's just such an easy, especially if it's easy. Like if it's easy stuff, like just telling someone that they're beautiful or handsome or that you're cheering for. It just, to me, with marriage or pair bonds, I shouldn't even say marriage, but the world is trying to kill you all the time,
Okay, real quick, because again, I disagree with the idea. There is a biblical reason, and I'll have producer Jason drop some scriptures here. There's biblical claims and reasons for marriage. So it's not just something we came up with or some utilitarian reason for property rights. There's a reason. And I just think that he's ignoring that, and he's on the threshold of it with things like being kind and demonstrating that you love them and going above and beyond, self-sacrificing, those kind of things like that. You see it, but he just won't push past the court like he's that football player that got almost to the end zone and just like is a few inches short.
Like, people are criticizing you all the time. You feel like a failure a lot of the time. If you compare yourself to other people, you'll constantly be, comparison's the thief of joy. So why not have like one person who's just cheering for you? Like, constructive criticism is criticism. It's still just criticism. So if your spouse is just sitting around criticizing you and telling you all the things you could do to improve yourself, instead of just being a fan and just saying, you know what, I know who you are and you're beautiful. I know who you are and your heart is good. And betting on the best parts of a person, I think that there's very little downside to that. I think it would put guys like me out of business if people really leveraged that the right way.
I asked you earlier if you believe in love, but you said you do. Do you believe in marriage?
I mean, I believe people believe in marriage.
No, but
What does that mean? I don't know, man. I like this guy, man. I really do. Let it be shown, let it be said. Let it be known, let it be said. I like him. I like his quirkiness. I like his quick responses. I do think he has a grasp of the problem. I just think he needs a biblical response. Like, he has a good grasp of the problem and a good diagnosis. So this is a doctor, if you will, that is giving a diagnosis of the problem. He's going to give more in a moment. But I just okay, that's all.
Yeah. Do I believe in marriage? I don't. I don't think it's a useful technology. I understand culturally why people do it, but I hadn't thought about it as a technology and why it's there. I didn't understand it the way I do now.
I think because you're using the term technology. Later on, he's going to like really get in. I think it's coming up. He's really going to explain it. And granted, I think it's a very keen understanding of human growth and development and what we're doing. I totally get it. But there again, he's still just on the threshold.
There's a line from a Joseph Brodsky poem that he wrote when his wife died, where he says, "I wish I knew no astronomy when stars appear." And I feel that way as a divorce lawyer. Like, I wish I knew no astronomy when stars appear. I wish I didn't know what the end of so many marriages looks like, because I think I would have a more optimistic and unrealistic view of it.
Yeah, but you'd be divorced and giving away half your...
I'd be foolish. Yeah, I'd be as foolish. But I don't know that it's always good to know, right? Sometimes there's tremendous joy to be had, and like falling feels like flying for a little while, until you hit the ground. Yeah. It feels really good.
But as I said earlier, now that the life expectancy of man is around the 80s or something.
Yeah.
Then it's like, so you're going to do this from your 20s or 30s until you're 80?
Well, marriage is a technology that was designed for when women died in childbirth and when...
Okay, so I'm going to back up a little taste. This is part of where he explains where marriage came from. And I do think he's a little bit inconsistent, because you're going to hear later on, you'll hear later on why I say that.
Until you hit the ground. Yeah. It feels really good.
But as I said earlier, now that the life expectancy of man is around the 80s or something.
Yeah.
Then it's like, so you're going to do this from your 20s or 30s until you're 80?
Well, marriage is a technology that was designed for when women died in childbirth and when men died in their 40s if they were lucky. 50s if they were super lucky. Like, if you were in your 50s, your 60s, you were an elder. That was pretty amazing. And most women died in childbirth. Like, childbirth is traumatic. It's a traumatic thing, and before modern medicine and before we understood antibiotics. So marriage is...
So why would one want to be married because women die in childbirth? I did not get that. And again, because I disagree with it, I'm willing to accept the understanding, but what do you mean? Because God instituted marriage in the garden, and it seemed pretty straightforward. Eve didn't die in childbirth. So I don't get where that came from. And yeah, I don't get it. But let us continue.
I don't think anyone ever planned that it was going to be, okay, we're going to do this forever. You know, we're going to do this till we're in our, you know, till we're 100.
Well,
I mean,
why would
but I
they
think
not?
that's part of it.
Why would they not, though? See, this is again where I mean, like, there's a biblical understanding of marriage, then there's a humanistic understanding of marriage. And I think you use words like utilitarian and technology when you're talking about the humanistic, but then you talk about a covenant, an agreement, dare I say contract, when you're talking about your relationship between a husband and a wife and God. Well, let them go.
A bigger problem. You know, I don't remember who said it, but I remember someone saying, I can't remember who it was, but we are prehistoric creatures, right? Like we are biological creatures living in medieval institutions like education, work, with godlike technology. How do you think that ends? Like you think that ends in happily ever after? Like that's insane. Like marriage was not designed. I mean, think about even the early days of marriage. Think about every Rodgers and Hammerstein musical. You know, think about Oklahoma. You know, where you'd have like there's like the 3 people in town that aren't married. You know, and you sort of pick which of the 3 you know you were going to go be with. And now you have access to just an endless.
Okay, so I don't know where we get I disagree with the prehistoric, the medieval, and the godlike technology, because I don't think that education well, first of all, there's a problem in the whole prehistoric medieval situation. There's a problem there. Now, granted, I do think we have our technology has moved past has moved faster than our morality has grown around it. So I do think there's some problems there and give some guardrails with our technology. But the ideas of marriage, I think, supersede those things because they were initiated by God. And again, they don't give any biblical claim to it. And I just wish they would, man. They get us as far as diagnosing the problem, but there isn't a real solution. Let us go.
Supply of the opposite sex, or I shouldn't even say the opposite sex. You have an endless supply of romantic partners in a device in your hand. How does that possibly stand up? How does marriage, the idea of monogamy, forced monogamy or enforced monogamy, how does that ever survive in that environment?
That's what I mean. Like our morality hasn't grown as fast as technology. That's really it. Like our ability to wrap our morality around that in the plate. And I think it's just because we're sinners and we weren't striving for morality, but then also like, I think it just grew too fast.
I don't think it can. I don't think it's realistic. And the statistics prove me right. You know, the statistics are absolutely in my favor. Now, again, get married as many times as you want if you have a prenup. If you have a prenup, go get married. Getting married's a blast. Being married is difficult. You know, someone once said that it's great to be married sometimes. The problem is you're married all the time.
So you're a fan of prenups?
I'm a huge fan of prenups. I mean, I shouldn't be, because a prenup for a couple of $1,000s will save you hundreds of thousands of dollars potentially in legal fees, if not millions. So there are clients I have that have spent over $1 million just in their legal fees, that if they had spent $2,000 on a prenup, none of that. They'd still have that money in their pocket. And that's incredible to me. Like I have 2 sons who are adults that they are absolutely going to have prenups. Like they have to have prenups. They'd be fools to not have prenups. It's like jumping out of a plane with no parachute. Why would you do that? You know, it's stupid. Prenups are enforceable. They make sense. I actually think there's something very romantic about prenups because.
Okay, he's going to say something here. I actually agree with him. And it's not for the reason that you might think. So let's let him do it and then I'll come back.
They're forcing you to have a conversation.
What does a typical prenup look like?
The easiest prenup in the world. Easiest. Yours, mine, ours. That's it. Yours, mine, ours. If in your name, it's yours. If it's in my name, it's mine.
Like in a divorce, all the assets are split 50-50.
Well, no, what you say in a prenuptial agreement is if it's an asset or a liability, if it's in my name, it's mine. If it's in your name, it's yours. If it's in our joint names, we'll divide it 50-50. That's it. Yours, mine, ours. And then you have to have ongoing conversations throughout the marriage about, you know, Hey, I got this bonus at work. Do I put it in my account? Do I put it in the joint
But if
account?
the husband owns a house that's worth,
Okay, so I agree with him that pre-marrieds should have conversations before they get married. I don't think they should result in prenuptial agreements. However, I understand why he's saying it. I mean, he literally said if people did it, it would drive him out of business. But I totally understand why he's saying it. I do think that pre-marriage should have conversations before they get married, and greater than just I like you, you like me, let's get together. So I do think that almost like if you were gonna have a prenup, let's go ahead and have that conversation. Let's get into the deep weeds. Let's really excavate. Let's really get in. But then the result is we get down and we build a better foundation that we'll stay connected to one another. Because especially when you hear about people getting divorced over happiness or not being happy, to me, that's something that we should have been discussing a long time ago. But
whatever, $2 million, and he marries a woman. The house is his still.
Well, they have to have a conversation.
Do
Do I owe you a house?
That's an
No,
awkward
you
conversation.
Okay. You know what's a more awkward conversation? A conversation 10 years later with a lawyer about the fact that you have to give half of this house away to someone. Isn't it better to have that conversation when you still why would you learn how to fight in a fight?
But won't that undermine the love that each person feels?
Why? You're gonna die. Does that undermine your life? Or does it make you conscious of the fact that this is finite and that you should be out there? I think having a conversation with your partner about, look, I love you, you love me. We want to do this thing together. But the numbers are against us and the world is antagonistic to it, and I hope we'll be together forever. But if we split up, what do we owe each other?
I mean, the way he says it, it does sound reasonable. It makes sense. However, I think the point is having the conversations. I really think that is where the real meat is. Having pre-conversations, and you don't learn how to fight in a fight, that kind of thing like that. That's great. And you don't think about your health when you're healthy. So, and I think this goes along with wills. A lot of people don't do a will and they wish that they did, but they don't do it because they feel like they're going to get sick or whatever like that. So I can kind of understand what he's saying. But again, if we could bring in a biblical understanding and disciple that husband to be and that wife to be and keep them focused on Christ, I really believe that we'll see better inroads in chopping down those statistical numbers. But let's go.
What do you expect from me? Because I have to tell you something. I'm a fair person. If you say to me, Jim, if I'm not going to work as hard because you make a good living. So if we split up, I'm going to need help for a couple of years because I'm not going to pay attention to my career. Okay? Is that unreasonable? That's totally reasonable. If I say, hey, listen, I have this house and I bought it, but I'm buying it with money that I made really before we were together. So if we split up, I don't really think you deserve half of it. I think that if we bought things for it together, that, okay, those things you can half of, but the house itself, that's money I had before I met you, and why can't you have that conversation? Why not? Instead, you buy a house, you do a HUD-1, a lead paint disclosure, you got to sign all these things that this is how much the interest is going to be, and this is what, you get married and you get a pamphlet. You don't get anything. You just did the most legally significant thing you're ever going to do other than die. And no one has explained any of it to you. People come into my office and they go, well, my retirement account, that's in my name. And I'm like, yeah, it doesn't matter. It's in your name. Okay, was it acquired during the marriage? Okay, she's got half of it. Well, I have this bank account, but it's in my sole name. It's money that I inherited from my mom. I'm like, okay, and it's in your name. Yeah, but you inherited that money during the marriage. Yeah, and did you put money that you earned during the marriage in that account also? Yeah, okay, that's commingled and transmuted. That's now marital property. So they don't know that. Why? Because no one tells them that when they're getting married. You spend more time talking about the cake than you do talking about the fact that you just opted out of the title system. That's gigantic.
So again, I think that goes to show that we need to be having much more robust conversations with pre-marrieds, much more important conversations with pre-marriage than just the cake and stuff like that. I agree 100%, but I don't think the end result is a prenup, or that the end result has to be that they get divorced.
You can't legally change the beneficiary of your life insurance, even to your children if you're married, without your spouse signing a consent to that. No one tells you that when you can get married. Elvis can marry you for $20 at a drive-through cathedral. And it's a legal status, a massive legal. You buy your spouse a Rolex, you bought yourself one half of a Rolex. You buy someone a birthday present who you're married to, you bought yourself one half of that birthday present. Nobody knows. People don't know that. They learn that for the first time in my office or in a courtroom. That's insane. What other thing in the world, like anything else, any other contract, you would say, well, wait a minute, no one explained that to me. No one explained that to me. When I leased this car, no one explained to me that there's wear and tear. It doesn't say it anywhere in the contract, right? Okay, marriage contract doesn't say that. It doesn't say, oh, and by the way, you're opting out of the title system and your retirement assets and all these other things, and if there's any debts, and you could have enhanced earning capacity or celebrity goodwill that has to be valued by forensic accountants that'll cost you $100,000. No contract that says that. It just says, yep, we're getting married. It's 2 witnesses, we're good. Like, what other contract in the United States or anywhere has that lack of disclosure and is that binding? None, zero, none. So why, a prenup, yes, that's an awkward conversation, I guess. I don't know that it has to be. And I have to tell you, the more awkward of a conversation it is, the more you should think twice about getting married. Because if you can't have a conversation with this person about the possibility that someday one or both of you might hurt each other. Like, how many people, while they're still happy and in love, say something like, babe, I love you, but we're going to disagree about something at some point. And when we do, how do you like to fight? Like, do you need a minute? Like, do you need to be alone for a minute so you can kind of calm down? Or are you hey, we got to figure this out and we can't go to bed angry? Because let's talk about that now while we're not in a fight. Let's talk about it now while we still get along and we're happy and we're trying to figure out how to navigate each other. It's hard enough to navigate yourself. I want to navigate another human being. Why don't we have that conversation now? But no, we don't. We learn on the job. We learn how to fight in a fight, which is insane. But again, why? Well, because it's awkward. It'd be awkward to have that conversation. More awkward than getting in a fight where you don't know the rules of engagement, where you don't know how your partner does better or would feel better. And you're not going to ask them that in the heat of battle, So why wouldn't you have that awkward conversation while you have this abundance of affection for each other? I mean, when I negotiate prenups, it's the easiest thing in the world in a sense, because these two people really like each other. Right. They're about to get married. So they're clearly not trying to kill each other. At that point, they clearly like each other. So you just say, hey, listen, go home, talk to your fiance about X, Y, and Z, and see what they think, and tell them what your concern is. And very often, people will come back and say to me, I have to tell you, I've been doing this now, over 20 years. I do a lot of prenups. I do maybe 5-6 prenups a month. Sometimes during pre-wedding season, which is the fall and before the summer, I'll do 10-15 a month. The people who say to me, oh, well, I don't want to have that conversation, they get the prenup, and within 3-4 years they're divorced. Sometimes 5 years and then 7 years, but they're the ones who get divorced. They have no business getting married. The ones who have the discussion and figure out well, I'm worried because if you keep the place, yeah, you're right, okay, so what if I give you this amount of money and it's this much for each year? Okay, yeah, that's cool, let's do it that way. Those people, they'll probably never put the prenup in a safe someplace. You'll never look at it probably.
Good communication solves the problem.
Yeah, because they're able to talk to each other and they're able to talk about hard things. How are you going to be married?
That's my point. I think there needs to be hard conversations, and maybe we need to up the ante, if you will, on tough conversations with pre-marrieds before they get married. But I don't think the end result needs to still be a prenuptial agreement, but that they need to have better communication beforehand. Because you hear the host even say better communication. Yeah, that's the problem.
Married to someone, have children with someone, and you can't talk about hard things. But people love, I had a client, no joke, guy was in his 70s. He was married 4 times. I did his 3rd and 4th divorces, and he was getting married for a 5th time.
5th time.
And I said to him, I was like, because I actually thought he's older. So I thought, like, does he know you don't have to marry them anymore? Like, maybe he doesn't know.
He's dividing his assets.
Yeah, maybe someone didn't tell him. But I said to him, I was like, why are you doing this again? I was like, you don't have to get married. Like, you're clearly not great at it, you know? Like, and he was very funny. He said, you know, Jim, he said, you buy a car and you drive it for 200,000 miles and eventually the engine craps out. So you go out and you buy a Ferrari or you buy some flashy sports car and you drive it for a couple months and you realize this is not the car for me, so you get rid of it. And then you get another car and, you know, you think this one's gonna be the one for you, but, you know, after you drive it for like a year, you realize, yeah, this is not the car for me.
You can lease them instead of buying them.
You're gonna walk everywhere for the rest of your life? Yeah, well, that was my answer. You could lease them. You could lease them. Or you could have some other alternate arrangement. I mean, here's the thing about marriage is it's a technology. So we made it up. So we can change it.
Okay, so notice he said, we made it up, we can change it. So just put a pin in that because you're going to hear that later on. In a few moments, they're going to be like, wait, hold on. I thought you said we made it up. But let's go back and talk about that. I think his example, his friend's example about buying a car, then buying a Ferrari, then buying another car, you don't really like it. Okay, I think that's very interesting and I can see the correlation, but it's still not going far enough and recognizing that this man is making an agreement before God and he's habitually lying to God and habitually lying to the women that he's marrying and all the witnesses. He's just making a lying, he's showing a practice of lying. So maybe we shouldn't just be so cool with that. Maybe we should just say, hey man, you're a habitual liar. Just maybe.
You think marriage will change in the next 20 years?
No.
I thought this
I think
was interesting.
I actually think it's going to have, I think I think the pendulum always swings hard in the other direction. We have a tendency as a culture to overcorrect. So I think we're heading into a spiral of like traditional stuff.
Really?
Like I think you're going to see like people getting like super religious again, and people are going to get super dogmatic. I think we're going to see the trad wife thing. We're going to see the hyper masculinity. We're going to see like a very, you know, we've gone so far in the direction of postmodernism where nothing means anything and everything's just, you know, like there is no definite. We've become like Sartre, you know, like we've become so postmodern that it's become almost a form of rugged individualism. I think we're going to swing in the other direction now, and traditional institutions are going to get popular again. It will be. I mean, you know, from a marriage place, it's going to be great because I think people are going to get married. I mean, people were slowing down on getting married for a while.
Sure.
And they were getting married later. And they were having kids later or declining to have kids. And I think as a culture, we start re-solidifying into gender roles or gender tropes, depending on how we want to look at it, I think you're going to see marriage resurge again, but I think that it's still going to be as flawed of a technology as it ever was. And I think we have so much out there now to compare ourselves to. You know, you used to compare yourself to the neighbors.
So I'll stop right there. I think I do think he's right about the swinging of the pendulum of society. I do think that that's more than likely probably true. He's been in the field, so he kind of knows the headwinds of society. So I think he's right there. I disagree with the idea that marriage is flawed, though. It's not marriage is flawed. It's the people in it that are flawed. And I mean, going back to his car analogy, we wouldn't say that every car is flawed if there's a particular brand that uses really cheap parts. We would say, hey, those cheap parts are causing cars to fail in that brand. So using the exact same thing, it's us, we're the problem. But notice again, still, he's not looking at the overall benefit to society of having a husband and a wife working together, living together, working through all their struggles and trials, raising a family, and that spreading out. But let's go.
Next door, and what car they had in the driveway, and what they were wearing when they left for church on Sunday. Now you're just looking at everyone's greatest hits while living your gag reel, you know, and you're never looking at any of that stuff when you're having like a peak experience. You know, you're on the toilet or you're bored and you're looking at everyone's hashtag blessed. And meanwhile, they're in my office. Like, I can't tell you how many people do a consult with me and they're cheating and they haven't slept with their spouse in 3 years and they're miserable. And you're looking at their Instagram and it's all like, best life ever, hashtag greatest hubby ever. And you're like, what is this? It's performance art. You know, it's an advertisement of how happy you are, but this is what people are comparing themselves to. They're looking at that and going, well, my marriage isn't that good. Well, that marriage isn't that good. Trust me, that marriage isn't that good. That marriage is in my... Look at celebrities. You don't even need to look at the people you know. Look at celebrities. Before they do, it is with great sadness that we advise that we're going to be moving in separate directions and consciously uncoupling. And like that, right before that, it's like, oh no, we're happy, we're great, we're phenomenal. You know, we're constantly advertising how wonderful our relationships are while they're on fire, you know, and then wondering why everyone's, you know, miserable in their relationship because they're comparing it to something fake. It's like comparing your body to a photoshopped body. You know,
other than social media, do you think there's something else in our society that made marriage more difficult to stay together?
Now makes it more difficult?
And just like your parents stayed married?
Yeah, my parents stayed married until my mother passed away.
Same with me.
But they were mixed results. I think that my parents were not as caught up in their own happiness. I think we're very caught up in our own happiness.
We're all very
Yeah, we're all very sort of, I don't want to say narcissistic, but we're very much like we are the sun around which everything revolves.
What am I not getting?
Yeah, my father was a Vietnam veteran.
Okay, he's going to go into a story about his dad. I'm going to let this play out because it's actually really good. I enjoyed this story about his dad and his mom. I just thought it was very insightful. But also, I've said this before and I'll say it again. The quality of the product that we're bringing into marriage is the problem. And we're bringing people into marriage that are not the same meat and metal as what we're going to hear about his mom and dad.
You know, he got out of the Naval Academy in '66 and went to Vietnam for 3 years. So he was alive. Playing with the house's money, I'm alive. Everybody in their wedding party had died. All the men in their wedding party died in Vietnam. There's 5 guys in their wedding party, and they all died in Vietnam. My parents never looked at their wedding album because every single man in it was dead. They were all helicopter pilots in Vietnam who got killed in their 20s. You know, so they didn't really see marriage as like it was a partnership. It was like, yeah, we're going to do this thing. We're going to have kids. We're going to raise the kids. We're going to, you know, we're going to have a house. You know, we're going to have a car. Like, we'll be successful. The lights are on. My father was dirt poor. He came from like Appalachian part of Virginia, a small town called Shawsville. Didn't have indoor plumbing until he left for the Naval Academy. And he just, I think he saw marriage as, yeah, it's what you do, you know. He met my mom on Fleet Week. She was a nurse in the city. And he was, you know, on Fleet Week and he had his uniform on and he was in a bar and he was drunk. And he went to her and he said, "You're the most beautiful woman I've ever seen and I'm gonna marry you," because he was drunk. And she said, "Are you in the military?" Because he was wearing a uniform. And he said, "Yep." And she said, "What country?" And he said, "Whatever country you're from." And he invited her to visit him at the Naval Academy a couple of weeks later, and she came. And they were married 50 plus years. But, you know, their marriage had challenges. You know, he was an alcoholic. He's been in recovery for maybe 7-8 years since she passed. But, and he's remarried. But he remarried within a year of my mom dying. Like, he was the kind of, he's of a generation of men that he needed someone to take care of him. You know, my mom died. He didn't even know how to scramble an egg.
Wow.
Like, it was, you know, like after she passed, I had him come to stay with me and my sons. And I was trying to like teach him like, okay, Dad, here's how you make like a batch of chili and then you can eat it all week, you know? And I was like, how's this guy gonna, because they had this very, you know, but that's what he met another older woman and her husband had died. She needed someone to take care of. He needed someone to take care of him.
But that generation didn't have it as easy as we did.
That's what I'm saying. Like
they were
just
grateful.
meeting your basic needs, right?
They were grateful to be alive.
They were grateful to be alive because they'd either been through war.
We're not grateful unless we're driving a Mercedes or a...
And even then we're not grateful because the truth is well, okay, a Mercedes, but what's a Mercedes? Who cares? You know how many people have a Mercedes? My secretary has a Mercedes. She leases it. You know, I drive a Jeep. So is she better than me? Is she more successful than me? She works for me. You know, so I don't know that any of it's enough anymore. Like, no matter what watch you have, somebody's got another one or a better one or 5 of them.
And all this comparison that we see.
It's all. And so I just think that's the thing that makes it impossible, right? Like if you're our parents' generation was struggling to just make it through, right? To meet your basic needs, to keep a roof over your head, to raise your children. And now where it's very much, are you self-actualized? Are you happy? Do you have 8-pack? Like, it would never have occurred to my father, did he have an 8-pack? It would never have been something he thought of, it's just not. It just wasn't on his radar, and I don't think my mother would have ever been like, oh, he doesn't have an 8-pack. Like, that wouldn't, because again, though, it's not constantly being advertised to him. I think that how many women did he interact with in a day? How many women do I interact with in a day, visually or personally in some fashion, or in a curated, mediated way? And again, those are curated women, by the way. So they're photoshopped, they're airbrushed, they've got filters on them. So again, how does marriage survive in that setting? It had a hard enough time surviving without all of that. I mean, forget kids.
The divorce rate keeps increasing, right?
Yeah, it keeps going up. So the countries where there is this very strict religious prohibition against marriage, or against divorce.
But I mean, the United States is probably the highest divorce rate?
We're among the highest, yeah. I don't think we're we might be the highest now. For a while, Germany had a very high divorce rate. France had a pretty high divorce rate. What's interesting is the divorce rate and the marriage satisfaction rates. Those are different. Because most people, the goal is not, can we stay married? The goal is, can we stay happily married? Because if somebody said to me like, yeah, I've been married 25 years and I've been fucking miserable for 15 of them. Like, I'm not going to envy you. Like, great job, you really hung in there in that awful situation. Like that's not impressive to me. I have a cousin who.
Okay, I like everything he said so far. I don't think that they're acknowledging a real issue. One, happiness is not the goal of marriage. The goal of marriage is not happiness. The goal of marriage is to remain married and complete this covenant that I made between God and my wife, or God and your husband. But also, they still seem to be skirting around the benefit of a 2-parent household and marriage, on children rather. I don't see how you can overlook that, especially when you look at some of the major cities in America, particularly. It's hard to say that a 2-parent household is not needed, or that the ramifications or the outcomes of raising children, particularly boys, without a father doesn't have any issues at all. No negative outcomes. I think we all can say there are major negatives. But let's go.
And your approach to life is, yeah, I mean, I don't like it, but I'll just kind of do it, Like, I want to tiptoe through life and arrive safely at death. Like, that seems, but I get that that's what if that's what marriage is, if it's an endurance event, where, no, you've got to stay married, Why? I mean, that's why I think religions have been very quick to, I always tell people I'm not religious. I was raised very Catholic. But the reality is that there's, if in fact God talked to humanity with 10 commandments.
Okay, so here's where I see the contradiction of man-made marriage, and now he's talking about how God talked to man about the 10 commandments. Watch what he says.
I think it's hilarious that the only thing he has to say twice is don't people you're not married to. Thou shalt not kill, once, right? Honor the Sabbath, once. Don't covet your neighbor's wife, don't commit adultery. It's the only thing. It's the only thing that got 2 commandments. So
it's actually not true, that you're worshiping the one true living God. You shall have no other gods before me. But let him go.
Like, basically it was, don't kill, honor the Sabbath, don't people you're not married to, seriously don't people you're not married to. Like, there's no, it didn't, thou shalt not steal, one. It's the only one that got double billing.
Well, religion's a big component.
It's a huge component. But why? Because how else are you going to control people? How else are you going to get people to sign on for this thing and not sleep with each other? I mean, I'm not saying.
But why? Like, what would be the benefit of, let's just say that man made up marriage to keep people from, to get them to sign on to not sleep with other people? Why? What's the purpose of that? There's no purpose. Who cares?
Freud was right, but we do want to sleep with people. We do want to kill people that don't do what we want them to do. Like, we have these animal instincts, we have these impulses. And what do we do with them? Well, we have to live in a civilized society. So civilization, it's discontents. We have to suppress certain things.
If marriage was outlawed or just abolished, would it just be a free-for-all?
I don't know that that's true. I mean, I think people.
But why did they make marriage? I would love to hear him explain, if man made marriage, then why? Why did the man make marriage? And then he uses the religion. Well, he used earlier, he said for like property rights and, okay, got you. That didn't make sense to me. So just because a woman dies at childbirth, that's why they got married? That doesn't make sense. But then also now he's saying that religion wants people to not engage in extramarital affairs. But why? What's the purpose of that? Wouldn't procreation be more? Wouldn't there be more humans if they just say, hey, y'all just get busy with whomever? 95% of women should be pregnant every year. Why pump the brakes?
People would like us to believe that's true. You know, I don't believe that. Like, I don't believe that if murder wasn't illegal, that I would just go killing people. Like,
I will give you that.
You know, I rape and murder as many people as I want to, which is none, because I'm not a monster. Like, I rape as many people as I want to, none, because I don't want to. I wouldn't want to do that to another person.
I think society would be probably happier without marriage.
Well, I think we would have a lot less of the damage that comes, right?
But see, again, society would be happier. I disagree with that. I think society would be way happier if we removed if we implemented many more speed bumps to stop the no-fault divorce system and remove some of the benefits of having children outside of wedlock. I think those would make society way happier. And I think if you talk to this host and you even talk to this attorney, which, by the way, I still like this guy. I think he's super cool. I believe we would see a change in society because, again, they still have not addressed what happens to children in a two-parent home.
I think we'd have to find new narratives to structure, to define relationships, right? I mean, I do think there is a part of us that wants to say, because, you know, I as a grown man who's divorced, when you're 20 and you say, oh, that's my girlfriend, nobody thinks anything of it. When you're 50 and you say, oh, that's my girlfriend, people go, oh, there's a story there. Like, because you're either divorced or commitment phobic, or why do you have a girlfriend when you're 50? Why isn't that your wife? So they know there's a story there. So we'd have to, and I get it, because if someone says, oh, that's my boyfriend, it's like, all right, well, that could be for a week. That could have been nothing. That could be like, yeah, it's my boyfriend. My husband, it's like, oh, okay, wait, that's her husband. Like, she's got some authority there. So I get that there's this idea that we want to say, like, you know, it's like when you're a little kid. This is my friend, but this is my best friend. You know, this is my best friend. But like, how many adults still need to say that? Like, how many adults still need to say, oh, my friend Todd and I, and my best friend Tom and I? Like, okay, like, so the extra special friend? Like, what did they, do they get health insurance with that? Like, what is the deal with that? So I think that's kind of what marriage has become, is it's like, you know, well, the person I love. No, but like the person I love. Like, there's a lot of people I love. I wouldn't want to be married to any of them. But there's a lot of people I love, you know.
Shout out.
I love my ex-wife. I wouldn't want to be married to her. I think she loves me. She wouldn't want to be married to me. I don't blame her. I'm a great ex-husband. I'm a terrible husband. I'm a great ex-husband. Because the skill set for an ex-husband is totally different than skill set for a husband. Skill set for a father is completely different than that of a husband. That's the thing I have to tell people all the time. All the time. People say, well, he's a terrible husband, so he shouldn't have custody of the kids. I'm like, where's the overlap between being a good husband and being a good father?
Okay, this is the first time they actually start digging into the dynamics of fathering and husbands being fathers to their children.
Like, being a good father is a whole different skill. You could be a great husband and a father, and you could be an amazing father and terrible husband. Like, there's very little overlap in those skill sets. maybe good listening skills would be helpful in both, or patience would be good in both, but that's true of almost anything. It's a doctor and a lawyer, both be good if you had good listening skills. It doesn't mean they're the same profession. So
is divorce harder on women or men?
that's a great question. I think it's equally hard on both, but I think that the world is more sympathetic to women when they get divorced. I think when a woman gets cheated on.
So again, like he started talking about kids, and I really think if you get into talking about kids, if this whole conversation, or maybe 8 more questions about kids, I think he would have had to admit that children raised in 2-parent homes are actually healthy and more healthy and helpful for society than the other way. But let's go.
Man's a shit. And when a woman cheats on a man, she must have been forced into the arms of this other man, or she had to explore herself, or she was being neglected in some fashion. And so if a man cheats, he's a piece of garbage. And if a man's wife cheats, he mustn't have been meeting her needs, and she had every right in the world. So the world is very unsympathetic
to men, right?
To men when they get divorced.
But that's been throughout Earth.
Yeah, that's been there was a maternal presumption, a legal presumption, what was called the tender years doctrine, which was that if a child was under the age of 7, they were automatically presumed that they would be in the custody of the mother. And men get really beat up still in court. The law theoretically is gender blind right now, but I don't actually see that, because the law is people. The law is judges, and judges are human, and they have all the same biases. And it's just not a moment right now where men are particularly sympathetic characters. I think that, even young men, if at a school dance they sing Beyonce's Girls Who Runs the World, if there was a song called Men Who Runs the World, Men, and it was a positive thing, you get pilloried for that. So I think
Shout out to James Brown. This is a man's world. All right, let's go.
Men have a very hard time right now in divorce. They see their children less. They get hit harder financially. They are the bad guy no matter what. If they cheat, they're the bad guy. If they get cheated on, they were the bad guy because they probably neglected her. There's a presumption that the man is to blame a lot of the times. Now, again,
I still think it's interesting that he has not really addressed the dynamics of the roles of husband and wives in the raising of their children. Because I don't think you can overlook that, because you can talk about the intimacy element. I think he used the term outsourcing it. You can talk about the commitment and the companionship. Got you. You can talk about the covenant between God and man. You can talk about the reflection of Christ in the church. But you really, truly, you can't skip over what role a man plays in the raising of his children, particularly boys and particularly girls. Look, it's kids in general. Let's go.
But I think men find a less sympathetic world. But in fairness, divorced men have it a little easier, I think. Divorced men meet a young woman, and the woman's like, instant family, just add me. That's great. If he's got kids, it's like, oh, he's got kids. Look at how nurturing he is and how lovely. And women, they get divorced, they've got kids. And guys are like, whoop, it's got baggage. I'm not going near that. So I think that men and women have different problems post-divorce, and the world could be better to both of them. I think that I have some women who I've done their divorce, and whatever guy is with them is going to be very lucky, because they're beautiful, they're smart, they're good moms, but they're also vibrant, exciting women.
Now they're loaded.
And they've got money now. They've got money.
Gosh.
They don't have as much financial insecurity. Although I have to tell you that, it's the last remaining feminist taboo. I got a lot of women paying alimony these days. Women marry the handsome musician who's not successful, or the artist, there's a lot, it hasn't been, there's been a significant effort in our culture in the last decade, if anyone didn't notice, to improve the situation of women. If you have an equally qualified man and an equally qualified woman, the woman's the diversity hire, the man's not. So I have a lot of women who when they get told, oh yeah, no, you gotta give him half, Or, oh no, you got to pay alimony because he makes 50 grand a year and you make 250. And they're like, you know, they could be the staunchest feminist in the world, and when you tell them they got to pay alimony, they're like, whoa, 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 he's a man. He's got a strong back. He can get out there and work. And then suddenly the whole like gender is a construct and there's no such thing, that goes right out the window when you get told you got to pay alimony. That's like, nope, no. I believe in strict gender roles. Men should pay alimony. Women, even if you earn 10 times, you should not have to pay alimony. I've had very, very staunchly feminist clients who changed their mind about how feminist they were when they got told that they were going to have to pay alimony.
That is funny.
Yeah, but I do have a lot of men who won't take alimony even though they're entitled to it. Because there's just some feeling of like, yeah, no, I'm not doing that. It's emasculating. Like if she tells people that we know that I took alimony from her, like people will think I'm less than a man. So again, it's all gender stuff. It's still out there. It's still part of the zeitgeist. You know, we're still trying to figure it all out.
How many marriages are genuinely happy, you think? How many married couples?
Gosh.
Because I see married couples that have been married, it looks like they've been married a decade or two, and they're having dinner and they're having the same conversation they had yesterday or the day before or the day before that, and the weeks and months before that. And it just
here's what I'll tell you. I know a lot of people, and I think I know one couple that has like a genuinely happy marriage.
What do you think the secret is?
They really like each other. I don't know. Like they're really good to it.
But I don't think, since you don't know what they're going through, he gave a great example earlier, like, you know, they're putting everything on Instagram, but they're having fire at home. I don't think you know that. I mean, it could just not be. There's a lot of reasons why their front-facing relationship is not keen. I mean, there's a lot of reasons.
Each other. I have to tell you, they make me very uncomfortable. I jokingly, my ex-wife and I jokingly say that they were the reason we got divorced. Because we've known them since we were in college, and we went to Disney with them, with their kids and our kids when all the kids were little. And we were gonna go on a ride with our kids and their kids, and they were gonna like, you know, we'll take the kids on the ride and you guys can go. And my friend was like, oh good, we're just gonna go walk and hold hands. And they walked away and like holding hands, and we looked at them and we didn't say anything to each other. But like 5 years later when we got divorced, I said, you know, when I saw the two of them together, I thought, I don't feel like that about her. Like, and she said, oh my God, I remember that exact moment. I felt the same way. So I think they make people uncomfortable. Like when you see someone who's got it right, like this guy just loves her. He loves her. They've been married 25 years, and dude, it's like he's talking about a girl he met yesterday. And she's the same way about him. Like
it's a miracle when that happens.
Yeah, I just think you know, man, I tell people marriage is like the lottery. You are probably not going to win, you know, but if you win, what you win is so good. But get a prenup. Like, do you take all your money and buy lottery tickets? No, but and I don't buy lottery tickets. Set the money on fire, it'll be more fun. But if somebody said to me, no, man, you know what, once a week,
would that be fun?
I buy $20 worth of lottery tickets. All right, go for it. You know, somebody's got to win. Maybe it'll be you. Like same thing with marriage. Like maybe somebody's got to win. Like yeah, I've met hundreds, if not thousands of couples, and I know one that is legitimately happy and
how does he
really
know that,
seem
though?
to just feed that happiness.
How do you know that they're happy?
That they have? And they both as individuals have become the best version of themselves by being, you know what? Like if they won the lottery. So buy the ticket, I guess, you know, but I mean,
can't get in the game without
don't make that your retirement plan. Like, don't go like, well, you know, don't worry, I'm not saving money for my kids' college because, you know, I'm buying lottery tickets. Like, you're an idiot.
I don't think anybody's doing that.
Excellent.
Somebody's doing it.
Thank you so much for sharing your story.
It's a pleasure.
Your thoughts on marriage and love and divorce. Fascinating topic, isn't it?
Yeah, it is, and I suspect it will continue to be. I don't know that we're going to culturally get any better at it, but the economy's good, we're busy. Economy's bad, we're busy. Like we're a recession-proof industry, so you know it's even COVID didn't slow us down. You know, you know. And when you're locked in the house together, that was not great for most marriages. Like there was it was not, hey, we should all spend more time together. You know, there was a lot of difficult conversations that came out of that. Barbers and divorce lawyers, when the pandemic ended, the lines were out the door.
All right, shout out to Soft White Underbelly. That was a really good interview. I really did like it. Again, my point in reviewing this was really just to show, like, man, we need a biblical response. We as Christians must have a biblical response, because you have people in your church, people in your family, your community, your job, your coworkers, your friend circle that are dealing with struggles in marriage. And ultimately, maybe they're actually trying to talk to this guy, but they really ultimately need hope in Christ. And if you could give them the gospel, if you could take their questions, their problems, their concerns, and help navigate them back to a biblical understanding of marriage, you would be doing them the hugest favor, way more than anything else. So that was why I wanted to do this. I do appreciate you watching the video. Comment down below. What did you think about it? Let me know in the Discord. If you like this type of content, I would love to do more of these. And this is an exclusive, so probably will never show up on YouTube at all. And I appreciate you all so much. And until next time, everybody, grace and peace. Take care.